and welcome to Not Suitable for Adults. It's a podcast.
It is.
But if there's one thing that we could say about this podcast, it's true. That's it.
That's it.
And I'm Rich.
I'm Natalie.
And we're going to start today with a review. We talked a little bit about this movie a few weeks ago now, but we promised a full-on review, and that's what you're going to get, baby.
Yes, so everybody should know, before we start speaking, that this will have spoilers if you have not watched it yet.
Yeah, we're going to be talking about Onward. Mm-hmm. This will be spoiler heavy, and we know that we're not this isn't frontline reporting. This movie's been out for a little while, but I think still a few people haven't seen it. And we just don't like spoiling movies.
Right, so we wanted to wait a little bit before we did a review on it. So that maybe most everybody would have seen it, but here it is.
Yeah, so normally we joke about spoilers, but this time it's for real. We're going to spoil this movie, so if you haven't seen it, pause, go watch it, come back.
Yes, or I guess when we're done talking about it, we can tell them what the time marker is.
Oh,
and
sure.
And then they can know just to go to that time marker.
Maybe. I'll see if I remember to do that and put it in the show notes.
Okay.
All right. So Onward is a movie by Pixar and Disney. Its IMDb page says, 2 elven brothers embark on a quest to bring their father back for one day.
Yes.
Which is true, but there's a lot more to it, I would say. Starring Tom Holland and Chris Pratt, which is just a great pair.
I loved it. But I've talked before about sometimes why people are chosen to be voice actors.
Sure.
That actually don't have a super distinguishable voice. And I feel like I can tell Chris Pratt's voice.
Yeah,
I feel like
sure.
he has a distinguishable voice. Tom Holland, I don't feel has as much of a distinguishable voice. I mean, he did fantastic. It was wonderful. It's just sometimes I wonder, why Tom Holland?
Well, there's probably a couple of things. One is, and I think you know this, but Tom Holland is a Brit.
I know that.
Okay. And so he's doing an American accent in this one.
Yes.
As he does when he plays Peter Parker.
Yes.
I think probably part of this is because it's under Disney, and so I imagine when the Marvel guys, which both of these people are,
mm-hmm.
Get into contracts with Marvel, because that's also owned by Disney, sometimes those deals include non-Marvel movies as well. So they're going to appear as that character for so many movies, and also are available for however many movies outside of the franchise.
Right.
I don't know that that's what this is, but I bet it is.
That's interesting. And I like that they are both from the Marvel-verse, and they play superhero-type characters, and in this movie, they are actually big ol' nerds.
Yeah, and speaking of, while we're on that topic, and this isn't about the movie, but around the time, so this had filmed and was about to release, and Tom Holland and Chris Pratt were all over Twitter for a while, because they're like, hey, we want to get the MCU cast together for a big D&D adventure.
Oh, okay. That would be fun.
Wouldn't it be cool?
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's going to happen or not. So, I mean, since then we've had a pandemic, so, but.
Hey, we do our D&D.
Yeah, we do ours over Zoom, so.
No, we do,
over Google Hangouts.
Yeah.
Anyway, so this movie, it very much is, a lot of its blood is D&D and fantasy role-playing.
Have we mentioned that we play D&D on this podcast? I'm sure we have.
I don't know if we have, but let's take a second to call it out. So we play, there are 2 games per week that this podcast is involved in. One is with our friends here locally. You've heard us talk about Rob and Heather, and we play every week, just about, with them. And sort of a little campaign we call Short Stories, because we're all diminutive races just by chance.
Right.
We just happen to choose a gnome and a halfling and a dwarf.
That's right.
And we're playing through Out of the Abyss. which D&D fans will be familiar with.
And we're kind of still in the middle of one of our bigger campaigns with them, but that one's been on break for a little while.
Yeah, we were playing another one, and some of the folks involved in that one had to step out for a little bit. So we're just doing a little, quote, side quest, because Out of the Abyss is quite long, but it's a blast. We get to hang out with our friends over the virtual setting. And then I also do just a weekly D&D game with a few other podcasters from The Movie Cellar and from Grand Rapidians review video games, and from Geek Exploration, the podcast. So you should check out those shows because they're good shows, but we just get together. We don't record it. We just happen to all know each other from Twitter and
just have fun.
Decided to get together to do a game.
Yeah, I'm in bed when that happens. So.
Yeah, that's a late night game.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's all that to say, we are into this movie because we're into D&D. So there's a lot about this that feels like stuff that we play in a lot lately. Let me go through the main cast really quick. So we have Tom Holland plays Ian Lightfoot, who is the main character of this one, and his older brother Barley Lightfoot is played by Chris Pratt. Their mother Laurel is played by Julia Louis-Dreyfus, who I don't know if I've heard in a voice acting role before, but she is great in this one.
The mom, we can talk about it.
Yeah, we'll get to that.
Yeah.
And then another important character that we'll talk about as we recap is the Manticore, and that's voiced by Octavia Spencer, and she also does a great job.
Amazing.
And there's a bunch of other folks in this one, but those really, we spent almost our entire time, we spent a little bit of time with Colt Bronco, that's like the stepdad of these two boys, and that's played by Mel Rodriguez, who I'm not as familiar with Mel's work, but he does a great job. And we get a brief moment of the dad, who the story is that the dad has passed away, and they're trying to bring him back, and that's voiced by Kyle Bornheimer.
And the reason why we hear his voice is because there's a little bit of a voiceover kind of thing with him. You never actually see him talk.
Yeah, I think there's some voiceover, and there's also like a voicemail that gets played back, I think.
Right.
He's trying to have a conversation with the voicemail.
Yes.
Let's get into the film itself. We're not going to do a full detailed deep dive.
We're not going to do a Natalie deep dive.
Yeah, this is a rich deep dive where I've got the plot pulled up on Wikipedia, and I'm going to skim it.
Oh, goodness. Why don't you ever prepare?
I did prepare. I pulled up Wikipedia. So, this movie opens with the premise that it's like, once there was magic, and you see sort of a traditional fantasy setting. Mm-hmm. It's actually weirdly reminiscent. The beginning of this is very reminiscent of How to Train Your Dragon, which is funny because that's not a Disney movie. But it felt kind of like that. It was like, actually, it bookends with that. It does the same thing that How to Train Your Dragon does. Oops. Sorry if I just accidentally spoiled some ripping off that Disney did of DreamWorks there. But it opens with all these amazing, fantastical things, and there was magic. And they show a wizard up on a hill, and he's got his wizard staff up in the air, and like lightning comes down or something like that. And the premise is there used to be magic and dragons and all these things, and time has passed, and they invented technology. Someone who didn't have magic was like, well, forget that. I want to do something fun, and they invented like fire or something. I can't remember what they did. It was like the wheel, or I can't remember what they invented.
They just become more cultured.
Yeah, so
they start inventing their own things, so they don't need magic anymore.
Yeah. So it's like our world. It's like our world where things used to be more archaic, and now they're very technological. And basically, technology replaces magic, but all of the rest of it's real. So these boys are elves, and there are like orcs and humans, and the unicorns are basically like cats. There's like, you see several times packs of feral unicorns in the street, which was really funny.
Yeah, because usually a portrayal of a unicorn is very majestic and regal, and these unicorns are like all like got their backs up like cats, and they're going.
It's very funny. Dragons, they're like, no, dragons are gone. There's no more dragons.
What's their pet? Isn't their pet like a little dragon type thing?
I don't remember now.
No? Okay.
And so we meet Ian and Barley, And their father passed away when they were very young. And so young that I think Ian was a baby. So, like, Ian never actually got to know him. And the day that we come into the story is Ian's 16th birthday. And he has a terrible day at school. He just goes to a high school where he's, like, a nerd and he gets picked on. Barley is, like, this big, beefy nerd guy. And he's unashamed about it. He's basically like today's nerd.
Right. Well, that's the difference between these two brothers. Is one is the younger one. What's his name?
Ian.
Ian. Sorry. Ian is a typical looking at him nerd, but he doesn't want to be that way.
Yeah.
He just wants to be
get
normal
through.
and just. And Barley, if you were to look at him, isn't the typical. He's big and beefy, like you said. Looks like he could have played football, been more of a jock type.
Yeah.
But he is 100% in on the nerddom.
Yeah, he's got like a van with a unicorn painted on the side, or a dragon or something. Something fantastical, and he drives that around town, and he embarrasses Ian with that. So it's Ian's 16th birthday, and they get home. And something went wrong, and Julie Louis-Dreyfus's Laurel, their mom, is asking them, like, how was your day, and all that sort of stuff. Well, she's like, but I have something for you. And so she goes up, go up to the attic, and she brings down this wrapped-up package with a note that was supposed to be, this is for, give this to the boys when they're both over 16.
Age. Yeah.
And so they unwrap it, and it's a wizard staff. Mm-hmm. And the note has a spell on it that will bring him back for one day. Mm-hmm. And they're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this. Dad was a wizard. And the mom has a funny line where she's like, your dad was an accountant. Mm-hmm. But there's a spell. And they're like, well, let's try it. And so they give it to Barley because he knows all about this stuff. Mm-hmm. He's like in the middle of a game on their dining room table. And so he's like, yeah, I know how to do this. And so he spends all night trying to say the spell, and he can't say the spell. And so they sort of abandon it for a while. I think this is when we hear the voicemail from the dad. Or maybe it's from a video or something, and they play it, and Ian's he pretends to have a conversation with his dad. It's very sad and very touching.
It is. It's one of the most pitiful things. Because
the way he does the conversation, even the way he fantasizes about talking to his dad and it like interrupts him. Is like, okay, well, talk to you later. Like,
right.
And so just on a whim, Ian picks up the staff and he says the spell and it starts to work. Mm-hmm. And things go swirling around the room and the magic is happening. And so he's holding on and Barley comes. He's like, what are you doing? And so he's holding on to it and he's trying to get this to work. And something happens. He can't hold on to it right.
Or he loses, like, a concentration or something like that.
He has to concentrate because it's slowly from the ground up bringing their dad back, and they can see him reappearing. Mm-hmm. And so something goes wrong, and he loses it, and they look over, and they think he's there, but it turns out only from the waist down has the dad returned, but he's walking around, so he's there. And so there's this funny thing that gets introduced where they talk to each other for the rest of the movie by, like, leg and foot taps.
Yes.
Where, like, they'll reach over and tap his foot, and he learns how to reach over and tap their feet and find them blindly.
He kind of walks around just shuffling with his feet, like tapping his toe around to see if he can find what's around just with his feet.
Yeah. So they decide they need to figure out a way to finish the spell, and Barley knows, he's like, no, all of this in their world, their Dungeons and Dragons game, whatever I can't remember what it's called, it's not called that, is based on history. And so he's like, this is all real, this was all real at one time, we need to go find this crystal, we need to find another crystal. And so they start out on a quest. He's like, I know right where to go, we're going to go to the Manticore's Tavern, and because they know all about it. And so they set out on this quest in that van. They get to, I'm going to skip some stuff. I know I'm going to miss some things. They meet up at the Manticore's Tavern.
Excuse me, sorry.
You're good. They meet up at the Manticore's Tavern, which is basically just a theme restaurant now. And the Manticore's there, and she's just the owner and chef. And they're like, we're here to get the map from you to go find the crystal. She's like, oh yeah, it's here. It's like it's like a color in on like a kid's menu. And they're like, no, we need the real map. And she's like, oh, we don't do that anymore. Like, it's right here, but it's framed. No, there's no more quest.
Right, like it's a relic that's framed up on the wall.
Right.
She says, I don't send people on these adventures anymore. I don't lead them because now I own this. Basically, it's a kids themed birthday restaurant.
Yeah. And so they through a bunch of there's a bit of a confrontation where Ian is trying to stand up for himself. If I'm remembering correctly, he's trying to stand up for himself, and they accidentally start a fire at the Manicore's Tavern.
Well, she does it. She sets it on fire.
Oh.
She rages out because they were like,
that's right. They talk her into it.
Out.
They talk her. That's right. They talk her into it, and she sets the place on fire by accident. And so they run away. They have the kids menu, and Barley's still like, no, this will still have a clue on it because it's based on the real thing. And so they set off on the rest of the quest. Cut back to the mom. The mom has found out that they're gone. And one thing that we loved about this, and Natalie talked about this a lot while we were watching it, is that this mom doesn't do the mom thing where she's like, oh no, I'm so worried, and then sort of sits still.
Oh my goodness, I loved this about her.
She realizes they're gone, she reads the note, she grabs her keys, she's out the door, and she gets to the Manicore's Tavern. She sees the cards that were laid out, and she figures out what the plan was.
Context clues, figures out that they're trying to go find this gem to bring their dad back, and she's like, does she call her? I'm pretty sure, I don't think they're actually like his stepdad yet. I think maybe they're just seeing each other.
Maybe so.
But we didn't mention that, I don't think you mentioned that he is a centaur.
Yes, and he's a police officer.
And he's a police officer. But she doesn't just go, get over here, the boys are gone, you need to go find them. No.
Nope, she's gone.
She's out the door, she's in her car, she's on her way to get her boys. And I love that.
Yeah. And so she gets to the Manicore's Tavern not long after they've left. And she meets the Manicore, and the Manicore realizes that she sent the boys away with enough to get where they need to go, but she forgot to mention that there's a curse. Mm-hmm. And so the mom's like, well, let's get out of here. So she and the Manicore now, Laurel and the Manicore, are now on their own quests to track down the boys before they get to the gem, because they know when they get to the gem, they're going to release a curse. And so they're off on this quest. The boys, basically, as they're traveling along, the boys are basically Barley is trying to teach Ian how to be a wizard. And so he's going through
because Barley has the knowledge, but apparently Ian has the ability. Magical ability.
Yeah.
Right.
And so he's teaching him spells as they go. And he's learning how to make things larger and smaller, and how to make himself... there's a very tense scene where he has to walk across an invisible bridge.
Oh my goodness.
Let's talk about this scene real quick.
Yes, it was one of my favorites.
So they get to this big chasm, and they have to keep going in that direction. They can see that there's a drawbridge, but the controls are on the other side. And Barley goes, well, if you could do the spell, then it would work. And so they practice it a couple of times. He's like, you won't see anything. There's no effect from the spell that you're going to see. You just have to cast it and keep concentrating, and then walk out on the air.
Yes, and it has to be a concentration. It has to be a confidence thing.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so he messes up the first time, but Barley catches him and pulls him back up, and he tries again.
Because he has a rope tied around him.
Yeah, he's like, let's tie you off, and that'll keep you safe. So they tie him up. He does it again, and it works. And he's walking out across the cavern, chasm. Excuse me. Mm-hmm. And about halfway, we see the rope coming untied.
We see it.
Yeah.
Ian, who is walking across the chasm,
he's loving it.
Yeah.
He's like, I can't believe I'm doing this. It's great.
He doesn't realize that his safety net is falling away. Barley sees it because Barley's on the other side of the rope.
And so we see Barley, it cuts back to his face, and he has this moment. We see him like wipe away a tear, And he just suddenly you can hear in his voice, he's like, "Great job, bud! You're doing it. You just gotta keep going. Don't look down. Just keep on going." And so he's powering him through at the very last moment, like one step from the end. Ian turns around and he sees that there's no rope, and he loses his confidence and begins to fall. But he catches himself and he's able to pull himself up at the end. He lowers the drawbridge. Man, it's such a tense scene. It's about 45 seconds long. But
and the minute that he's on the land, you see Barley just like collapse onto his knees, like out of relief. It's fun and it's kind of silly in a way that, oh no, he could fall because the rope slid off, but it's actually extremely emotional.
This is sort of a pivotal moment in that plot because the brothers, Ian doesn't really like Barley. It seems like they love each other because they're brothers, but they have so little in common, and he doesn't like that. He doesn't want to be part of this sort of nerdiness that Barley has.
He thinks it's obnoxious. Like, and he's just obnoxious,
and he thinks he's kind of a slacker, and he thinks he's And so there's this moment when they get across the bridge where he's like, "Why didn't you tell me that my rope was falling?" And he's basically like, you had to finish it. He's like, "But I could have died because of you." He's like, "No, you didn't die because of me." He sort of points out that, like, not only did I help you, but you just did an amazing thing that you couldn't do, a few minutes ago. And that sort of frames their relationship for the rest of the movie, because Ian begins to realize how much he's really helping him. So as they're going, Ian is looking at this list. He's got a list of things he wants to do with his dad, and he's realizing that time is running short. And so he keeps crossing these things off a list. He has this little pad in his pocket. He keeps realizing he's not going to be able to do these things. He's running out of time as they get closer and closer to the end of the day. We'll sort of skip ahead. There's tons of this movie, but I don't want to spend the entire hour on it. Long story short, through many twists and turns, they get to the end of the quest. They come out of this sort of porthole from this cave where they were trapped in one of the last clues. And they come out of the hole, and they're back in their hometown.
They come out of a manhole across the street from Ian's high school.
Yeah. And they're like, this can't be right. They can't believe it. And so they begin to give up, and then they realize that the final clue, the thing that they're looking for, is the fountain. It's the fountain right there in town, in their own hometown. And they get up there, and Barley's able to do the final little puzzle, and he finds the gem. Well, he finds the gem, and it releases the curse, because the mom and the Manticore weren't able to catch up.
Just barely not able.
The Manticore has a magic sword that will let you defeat this, what we find out is like a stone dragon.
Well, what's interesting and something I loved about this particular dragon is that he comes out as in a gaseous form at first, and then he pulls from the world around him to form himself. So he pulls mostly from the building, the high school building, and makes himself into this stone version of a dragon, but with bits and pieces of high school. And
so the funniest part about the dragon is that the high school's mascot is the dragons, and the face ends up being the big painted dragon from the side of the...
And it looks very happy. Yeah. Like, the dragon mascot is very happy, but this is a very bad dragon.
Right. And so, time is running short. They're very close to the end of the day. So then they know they need to finish this spell, but they also now have to deal with this dragon. And just at the perfect moment, Laurel and the Manticore arrive.
And what does Laurel do? Does she just go, "Watch out, boys, be careful, the Manticore is coming to save you"?
Nope.
No,
she gets in there.
Effing way.
Yeah.
She gets in there. She jumps on top of that dragon with that sword. Man, I love it.
Yeah, she gets right in there into the fray. And so they start the spell again. They get the spell started while sort of Barley and Laurel are kind of dealing with the dragon and the Manticore. And there comes this moment where the spell finishes, or it's finishing, and Ian has to make a choice, because now he's seeing his dad, and Barley's there, and they need to take care of the dragon. The dragon's coming back. They didn't fully take care of it. And so he realizes that he looks at... I can't remember what the order of events is at this point, but essentially what happens is he realizes here at the end of the movie that he's got this list of things that he wished he could do with his dad that he never got to do, that he realized he got to spend his whole life doing with his big brother.
Right.
And
He has this wish list of things that him and his dad would have done if his dad was there. But then he goes through his memories and realizes he did those things not with his dad, but with his big brother, who was always there to fill in that role for him.
But he realizes his brother never did. His brother was very young, was 3 or 4 years old when their dad was gone, and he didn't get any of that.
He took on the role. He took on the big brother / dad role, but he didn't get that. Also, you didn't mention that the dad passed away from a sickness.
Yeah.
And the last time Barley was going to be able to speak to him, he didn't go in because he got scared because he saw him plugged in and he had stuff.
Which is super real.
Tubes all over him and stuff like that. So Barley, as a young child, was not able to say goodbye to him, or he was able, he just got too scared to do it, and he's regretted it since then, that he never said a proper goodbye.
So Ian at the last moment tells his brother that he's had his chance to have a role model, but he wants him to have this chance to talk to his dad, and Ian is going to go take care of the dragon. And so they split up, and Ian's able to use all his, he's got 10 spells now that he knows from this day, and he's very good at them, and he figures out a way to slay this stone dragon, and once it's all over, he sort of turns around, and he is physically now separated just by sort of the carnage that happened.
But he can just see through a peephole Barley getting to talk to their father.
All of this last little part that dealt with this relationship with these boys and their dad was the part that got me choked up during this movie.
Oh, it's killer.
There's this moment where you can see he's looking through the rock. He can see just a little tiny hole through the rock, and he can see Barley talking to their dad. And you can see them sort of laugh and chuckle, and you can see them hug, and then the dad disappears.
Because it's the end of the day.
Right. So Barley gets 1 minute with him, and that's it.
It's a Pixar movie through and through.
They get together, and Barley has a message for, I can't remember what he says. It's something funny he says to Ian that the dad said about him. But man, it's just very... It's very poignant and very cool, and unlike anything else that Pixar's done, I feel like, in that way, that series of relationships is something they've never had a chance to really look at. Mm-hmm. And then the very end of the movie I mentioned before, Ian repeats what we heard at the very beginning, that once there was magic, and you see all this stuff happening, and basically he's saying but it's back now. Mm-hmm. So now we live in a world with magic again. And that's the very end of the movie, with I think him teaching, he's tutoring kids at school about how to use magic, and
I can't remember the exact ending.
I think that's right. I think he tutors some younger kids at school. Man, it's a really good movie. So
good.
I can't say enough nice things about it, and everyone kind of knew it's a Pixar movie. It's a modern.
We knew it was going to be good.
But it is very good, especially if you're into swords and sorcery type movies already, or that genre of if you're into D&D or anything like that, you're gonna like this movie. Mm-hmm. So what we're gonna do now, because that did run a little bit longer than I initially planned, but I got just on a kick and I enjoyed it too much.
I know.
So let's go ahead and head over to Promoville.
It's a beautiful day in Promoville, a beautiful day for a promo. Would you please, could you please listen to this promo?
In a world of utter randomness, one podcast stood out from the bunch, and it was The Amazing World of Talking Shiz. Sorry, I had to clear my throat there. Yeah, it's just mainly randomness.
And focus
It's
is
definitely
not being
not there.
focused on at all.
No. Our podcast is definitely no theme at all. It's literally random and talk about literally everything and throwing in random jokes at any given time.
We're on Spotify, Apple, and Google Podcasts. So go ahead, tune in. New episodes weekly.
And we're international.
International.
Very,
Yes.
very well. So tune in. Follow us on Twitter. See you there.
And we're back. What do people do? Boo boo boo.
Boo boo boo.
I think that's so last year now. I think we just did something too old.
Don't even know or care.
Sweet.
How are we doing time-wise?
Oh, we're doing great.
Okay, because I had a couple things I wanted to do.
All right, do your things.
Okay, I'm going to do my show really quickly first. And then I want to end today. We decided to forego the question of the day today because I wanted to share some interesting things with you. But first, let me do my show for today. Before I get into that, I wanted everybody to know that I watched The Willoughbys on Netflix, and I am planning on doing a review of that soon, but it did just come out on Netflix like a week ago. So I will be looking into doing that soon. Please go watch it. It's kind of adorable. Okay. I want to talk to you guys about a show that Cora doesn't watch as much anymore, but there was a point that it was constantly on our TV. And it is the show called Spirit Riding Free. It's made by DreamWorks, and it's on Netflix. It premiered in 2017, and right now there are 8 seasons of it.
I think a new one just came out. I think that's why we've been seeing it pop up in Netflix recently. I think a new season just dropped.
Okay. Spirit Riding Free is set in a small frontier town of Miradero, and I believe that's the Miradero in Oregon.
Okay.
And this is in the 19th century. It follows a 12-year-old girl named Fortuna Esperanza Navarro Prescott. Do you like my accent?
It was good.
Great. Mainly, I want to point out that her first name is Fortuna, and she goes by Lucky.
Lucky,
Yes.
which is great.
Which is super cute. She's from the big city, and she's going into this small frontier town with her dad because he has a job on the railroad. And with them is his sister, Lucky's aunt, Cora. Who is very stingy and very well-mannered, and even though we're in a frontier town, we're going to have proper manners.
And is yet another Cora we didn't name our daughter after.
Yeah, exactly. Lucky's mother was a circus star. She did the I'm sorry, I don't know what it's called, but when you do tricks on horses where you stand up on the horse and with one leg and all that stuff. She was in the circus.
I know the word for that, and I can't think what it is.
Look it up for me.
And the word that I'm thinking of, I know is wrong and means something very different.
Great. She was a circus star, and she died when Lucky was still very young and didn't really get to know her very well. On their way in, the very first episode, Lucky sees... So on their first day, in the first episode, they're riding into this new small town, and they see some wranglers wrangling a wild stallion. And they get into town, and she realizes this stallion needs to be... They're trying to break the stallion, and she doesn't like it, so she...
Break time. Coming, babe. So I found the word we were looking for, I think. The word I was looking for is dressage, but that's not what that is. Dressage.
What's a dressage?
So dressage is like the thing where you're making the horse like prance in a certain way.
Okay.
We're talking more about like equestrian vaulting and barrel racing and things like that. It was more.
But is there not a specific circus term?
Not that I could see.
Okay, they call her something, and I believe it's in the the Spanish language.
That may be true. I couldn't find.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. They are riding into town on the train. They see some wranglers trying to wrangle this stallion. As they get into town, they see these same wranglers trying to break this stallion. Lucky doesn't like it. Lucky sets the stallion free. I forget how all that goes about. Because she sets him free, he kind of bonds to her in a way, but he is a wild horse. But she can ride him. He comes to her, and she names him Spirit. She has a couple of friends, which I'm just going to mention really quickly because they also have animals. Prue owns a horse named Chica Linda, which means pretty lady, who is a palomino. And Abigail, who's kind of the ditzy one of the group, her horse is named Boomerang, and he's a pinto. And they call themselves the Pals because that's their P-A-L, Prue, Abigail, Lucky. Pals.
And Prue's dad owns like the
stable.
The stable. So they spend a lot of time around the horses because of that.
Exactly. Abigail's little brother, they call him Snips. He's always getting into mischief. He's always taking things, and he's a lovable little rogue is what he is.
Doesn't he have like a little
He has a donkey that he has named Senor Carrots.
Carrots. Oh, it's so good.
He's kind of I can't say words. That show isn't of itself extremely funny to me, except for the Snips parts.
Yeah, Snips, and also
there's a couple of little twin girls that are kind of funny.
But they're funny with Snips.
Yes.
And Abigail's character is sort of is funny
because she's kind of ditzy and kind of flaky. And they just go on adventures, basically. It's kind of the normal, they're in school, there's boys, there's dangers, there's mountain lions, there's campouts.
Yeah,
Spirit gets taken again. All this different stuff.
It's funny because there are a lot of those, like about half of the problems they encounter in this show are like social things, where it's like there's a girl who's a bully at school and they have to deal with her, and the other half are like, oops, one of us is in the ravine when they're getting ready to blast in there. Quick, we gotta go. We gotta save him. We gotta go save one of our friends who's gonna get blown up.
One of the big points of contention is that later on in the season, maybe it's season 2 or 3, the dad falls for the teacher of the one-room school building that they have, Miss Flores, and Lucky is not into that idea, and she actually runs away for a little bit and joins the circus like her mom did. So we get to meet a few different characters while she spends basically a summer in the circus.
And don't her friends run away with her too, and so they're all in the circus for a while,
I think they come to find her, and I think it's all because she meets up with the circus that her mom was in. So they know her.
They kind of know her,
right?
Yeah.
And then they write her dad, and they're like, "Lucky's fine. She's with us," and he gives permission for her to be there for the rest of the summer. And I believe the other 2 girls also get permission to be with them.
You know what's one thing I like about this? And it's something I'm always kind of paying attention to when it comes to kid shows from a parent perspective, is the dad is a good dad.
He's great, yeah.
He's not this is another one where the mom passed away, and he's an upstanding citizen, and he's a good guy, and he doesn't do wrong by Lucky. He parents.
Yes.
But
she gets grounded. So there is discipline involved in some of her antics.
But the early part of this show, spoilers for Spirit, is her sort of being like, I love the idea of owning a horse, but not knowing how to own or use a horse.
She didn't even know how to ride a horse, really.
And so, there's a whole episode about her wanting to go out into the hills, and her friends and everyone who knows about horses being like, no, listen, that would be a lot of fun, but you do not know how to do it, and you would not be good at this. And her just deciding she's going to do it anyway, and then not being able to do it. And then her friends and her dad having to be like, we told you this for a reason. We don't want you to not have good things. We just want you to be safe.
Mm-hmm. Lucky is the first biracial lead in a DreamWorks animation TV series.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm. Because her mother is of Spanish descent, I believe.
Is she Spanish or is she Is she Hispanic or is she Latina?
I do not remember that. And her dad is Caucasian.
Yeah.
And this show is loosely based on the 2002 Oscar-nominated for Best Animated Feature Animated Film, Spirit, Stallion of the Cimarron?
Yeah.
Or is it with an S sound, Cimarron?
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't know this. I actually don't know this movie. But the series does not share any characters or settings or plot elements or anything other than...
It's just another girl with a horse.
Well, other than Spirit, the horse in the TV series, is supposed to be the offspring of the spirit in the film.
Oh, interesting. Mm-hmm. Wasn't there also... I feel like... No, I'm thinking of Hidalgo. I was thinking that there was a live-action movie called Spirit also. But I think I'm thinking of Hidalgo.
You might be thinking of Hidalgo. I don't know.
Okay.
So that is Spirit. It's cute. They learn a lot of good lessons.
It's super well animated.
It's a
great, beautiful...
it's DreamWorks.
Yeah,
it's great.
A beautiful show.
Yeah, we just don't see it as much anymore. Cora hasn't been as interested in it lately. But that's one that's not going to just, burn your brain as you're watching it.
Yeah,
so
it's really good.
There you go.
Hey, Natalie, tell me some trivia.
Okay, hey. You know what? I have some trivia ready for you.
Ooh.
I'm getting this off of mentalfloss.com.
Cool.
And it is fascinating facts about some of yours, some of mine, some of our favorite Disney animations.
Let's do it.
Okay. And I'll try to go through this quickly because I know we're probably running long.
You're doing great.
Oh, okay, good. Did you know, Rich, that everyone expected Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs to be a complete bomb?
Really? Critics thought that, or?
Nobody thought it would succeed. Disney took out multiple loans and even mortgaged his own house to fund it. The insiders for Disney started calling Snow White as Disney's folly.
Oh, man.
Mm-hmm. Even Walt's wife, Lillian, thought the movie would completely bomb.
Boy, how wrong they were.
Mm-hmm. Another thing, another Snow White tidbit, Dobie was supposed to have a lot of dialogue.
Oh, okay.
But they could not find a voice that they thought was proper, so they just had him not talk at all.
That's beautiful.
I love it.
And weird for a movie where that he was trying so hard to make succeed that he wouldn't have eventually been like, okay, no, you're good. You're fine. Danny Kaye, get in there and do it.
Right. Snow White became the first film ever to release a soundtrack.
Really?
Yes. In 1944.
That's great.
These are making you very happy, and I'm
very
loving it.
happy. That's very interesting.
I don't know as much about Pinocchio. Do you know much about Pinocchio?
A little bit.
I'm going to pass on the Pinocchio
Okay.
trivia. Dumbo almost was on the cover of Time.
Ooh.
It was, so he would, is Dumbo a he?
Yeah.
Okay. Was supposed to be on Time Magazine as the Mammal of the Year, but it was right after Pearl Harbor happened, and they decided to make that the cover story.
Probably the right call.
Yes, even though they did put him on an inside feature calling him the Mammal of the Year.
Okay.
He just was not on the cover. Dumbo is also Disney's shortest feature at 64 minutes.
Whoa.
He is quoted as saying, Disney is quoted as saying, "You can stretch a story just so far. After that, it won't hold together."
Good.
Yeah.
Hey, you know what, Walt? Good call. No, you know what? Let's make 3 movies out of this. That's what we do today. We're like, there's only... Look at The Hobbit. The Hobbit is a 100-page novel. Let's turn it into 3 movies. Thank you, Walt Disney. This movie only needs to be 64 minutes long. Let's do it.
So, I'm going to read a little bit about a war hero,
Okay.
and I'm going to tell you how he fits into the Disney lore.
Can't wait.
Donnie Dunnigan spent 25 years in the Marines. He was decorated Vietnam War veteran who rose up the ranks quickly. 13 promotions in 21 years.
Wow, Donnie.
He holds honors as being the youngest ever drill instructor, and he received a Bronze Star and 3 Purple Hearts.
Okay.
When he retired as a major in 1977, he was able to tell a little secret that he had been keeping back from all of his, because he had a what is that? A role to play in his military services.
Okay.
So he didn't want this to be a stigma on himself while
Okay.
he's barking orders to new recruits.
Sure.
Just
I'm on the edge of my seat, literally.
Major Dunnigan was the voice of Bambi.
No! The gentlest of all the Disney protagonists.
You loved it.
Oh, that's so good.
Did you know there's a psychological order known as the Bambi complex?
Really?
Just being very sentimental and sympathetic towards wildlife and wild animals.
Oh, okay.
They call that strong feelings against hunting, controlled fires, inhumane treatments, which I feel like we all have those strong feelings, but apparently it can go into a psychological type issue.
Come on, babe.
Parenting break. Back from a parenting break. Whew. That was a tough
That was a rough one.
The complex that I mentioned beforehand should be noted that it is not an officially recognized complex. Just so you know.
Oh, okay, good.
Yes. Another unofficial complex is called the Cinderella complex.
Uh-huh.
And that is a person that is very dependent on men for emotions, being swept up by Prince Charming, that sort of thing. That term was coined in 1981 by a author. The Cinderella, when Cinderella changes from rags into a beautiful dress, was said to have been Walt's favorite piece of animation.
Oh.
The Lady and the Tramp spaghetti scene almost didn't happen because Walt couldn't figure out why dogs would be eating spaghetti that way. It was also the first...
Wait, hang on.
Okay.
Hang on. Let's back up.
Okay.
Walt.
I mean, he's just like,
you started your career as someone who's like, let's put everything behind this talking mouse, but you can't get behind dogs eating spaghetti.
Well, I believe in the rest of the movie they are pretty doggish.
Sure.
I guess. I have not seen Lady and the Tramp in forever.
They also talk.
Oh, do they?
Yeah.
Honestly, I haven't seen it in so long. It just says that though he wanted to have the dogs have human emotions, he could not wrap his head around two dogs romantically sharing a strand of spaghetti.
Well, okay, I gave you some props before, but you were wrong on that one.
Lady and the Tramp was also the first animated film to be made in CinemaScope. Sleeping Beauty flopped in the box office, and they didn't make another princess movie until 30 years later with The Little Mermaid.
Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm. Because people were just like,
we get it.
Princess movies aren't cutting it.
They're not it right now.
Yeah, exactly. Let's see. The Aristocats was the first Disney film to be produced after his death.
Mm-hmm.
Jackie Chan.
I can't wait for what comes after those two words.
Jackie Chan was the dubbed over voice for the Beast in the Chinese translation of Beauty and the Beast.
Okay, that makes sense.
Including the singing.
Ooh, Good for you,
Jackie. He doesn't like.
No, you don't. I talk to
No,
him.
stop it.
When I was
He
talking
doesn't
to
like
Jackie,
that.
I call him
He just
Jack.
told me today
No,
he doesn't like to. Ugh.
He told me it's okay. It's an inside thing with just me and him.
To land Robin Williams as Aladdin, they animated a genie just doing Robin Williams stand-up to get him to see you could be this genie.
So to pitch Robin Williams on being the genie in Aladdin, they did a custom strip of the genie dubbed on top of Robin Williams' existing stand-up comedy.
Yes.
I need to watch that.
I'm not sure if it.
Hey Disney, I know you're listening. We need that. We need to be able to see that.
Yeah. They just they picked the schizophrenia bit where he says, "No, it doesn't. Shut up. Let him talk." The bit that he just does about schizophrenia, and he says what he did, and this is Goldberg. He was trying to get him. Yes, sorry, I was just skimming this. He animated the genie growing another head to argue with himself, and it made Robin Williams laugh and realize that he could be this character.
That is so funny.
He also did up to 20 different line reads.
Oh, yeah.
Each time for the genie, just so that they could get the perfect one.
Yeah, that makes total sense.
Hakuna Matata was not in the original script for The Lion King. Just interesting.
I wonder what the story is with that, because that's one of the most important parts of the movie.
Sure. I mean, I can...
Well, maybe on another time.
Okay. A hyena researcher sued Disney for defamation of character for its portrayal of the Lion King portrayal of hyenas.
You know what? I think I know. I don't know. I didn't know that, but I've seen people since then, like fairly recently, like in the last 5 years or so. I've seen a video where someone was like, these animals are so misunderstood, and they're out there like in the savannah hanging out with hyenas, and basically they're just like treating them like big dogs. Mm-hmm. And to be fair, they're acting like big dogs. Like they're just acting like big dumb dogs. So interesting. I mean, come on, though. It's a cartoon.
I'll go back to Hakuna Matata because I skimmed it really quickly.
Hakuna Matata!
They had another song written up because Lion King was the first truly original Disney cartoon.
Because everything else was based on either a fairy tale
an
or
existing story, a pre-existing storyline. This one was truly original. So they had beforehand a song about eating bugs.
Okay.
And they couldn't convince everybody that an entire song about eating bugs was really worth it. So the research team came back from their trip to Africa with the phrase Hakuna Matata, and they talked it over, and they decided that it was similar to Bibbidi Boppity Boo.
Sure.
It becomes a little phrase.
Or supercalifragilisticexpialidocious.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's why they made the song out of that.
Good call. Although if that's a real phrase, that's a little bit unfortunate for the original culture, I guess.
I'm sorry, I stopped listening to you for just a second because I was skimming the last two, and I'm not going to.
I'm just saying, if Hakuna Matata is a real thing, and then they came back and they're like, "Hey, we heard this nonsense phrase," just like Bibbidi Boppity Boo.
Oh,
like no, it sounds like those are real words. That's a little unfortunate.
And there are a couple.
Like, it's weird because like that's unfortunate, but also in the end a good call because that is such an iconic part of that movie. Anyway,
just a random. Every now and again, you can see a hidden Mickey Mouse, in some other movies,
sure.
Shapes and stuff like that. So that's where I'm going to stop there. So
interesting Disney trivia with Natalie.
I love that sort of stuff.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah. I'll be doing that again, I'm sure.
Good times. Well, listen, this has been another episode of Not Suitable for Adults. This is our 23rd, we just realized. We've been doing this now for, that means, like, almost 5 months.
Yep.
Right?
You said, before we started this...
No, more than 5 months.
Before we started this, Rich said, this is our 23rd episode. And I went, yep, we keep making them. I mean, as long as we keep making more, the number will keep going up.
It's just, we don't talk about the episode number a whole lot in this show because that's, like, it's not like you have to listen to these in order necessarily. But yeah, I mean, that's pretty cool that we've been doing this now for over 5 months. And
guys, we are so close to 1,000 Twitter followers.
Oh man, yeah, we're at like 945 or something.
So if you're not following us on Twitter,
what are you doing? Get over there and follow us on Twitter.
It's at
Not For Adults Cast. NOT, the number 4, Adults Cast. Like a podcast but not for adults.
And we're on all the places.
We're on all the places.
Handle.
I have made sure everywhere we go to be able to get Not For Adults Cast as our tag or our handle or our username or whatever. So pretty much anywhere you might want to try and find a podcast, that's a good way to start.
And we need to plug FNX.
Yeah, go ahead and head over to fnxfit.com. They offer all sorts of healthy supplements and healthy gear that you can wear when you're doing healthy things. Mm-hmm. And like really healthy hats with their really cool healthy logo on it.
Healthy hats. And I know it is so hard right now to stay healthy when you're stuck inside with all of your food.
Yeah. That's
so hard.
They have daily supplements. They have workout regimen stuff. They have the greens, which is the thing that I use that is really tasty. Get over there, go to fnxfit.com. You can use the code NS4A15 to get 15% off your order. And it's a great deal. You're going to enjoy the products and you're going to feel good. And that's what it's all about.
Always.
And listen, while you're sipping on your unicorn punch flavored green drink there in the morning, or maybe you're sipping on a Red's apple ale like Natalie is, you're just hanging on the couch. Listen, you've been binging through all your favorite shows and your kids been able to watch their shows. Just don't forget, while you're doing that, everyone's friends here, but you're still the boss.
So watch whatever you want.
Okay, bye.
Bye.